So it's 6:05 right now. We've got about 20 or so people who have logged in. We might just give it a minute to see if anybody else is going to join us today. Again, my name is James Pollock. I'm the Director of Communications for the Summit County Prosecutor's Office. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out this evening to join us. This is going to be a fun event. We've done this before. Unfortunately, we have to do it via Zoom. We can't be in person to do it. So I also wanted to let you know that as you logged on, you probably heard that this is being recorded. We will send out the links. Tanya, we're going to do it probably every week. So if there's something that you missed, or if there's someone, say you miss a week, you can always go back and review and watch the Zoom again to catch up on anything that you missed. We'll probably send those out, I don't know, Tanya, the next day or so, or...
Yeah, I usually will get them out right before the next meeting, like with the agenda. I'll usually send you guys an email before each week, Monday or Tuesday, just to say, don't forget the Zoom link. Don't forget our meeting on Wednesday. Here's what we're going to talk about. And then I'll say the previous week's recording is here. So if you want it any earlier, please let me know, but I will get it to you within the 7 days. So I think we will get started. James and I usually tag team this. So you can't see James' face right now because his computer isn't working, but you can hear him. He's always there. And as he said, this will be recorded for you to look back on if there's anything that you missed. But we're just so happy to have all of you here today for our Citizens Academy. This is our 3rd annual Citizens Academy. We do this every year. And we do it now. We're doing it for 10 weeks because every year we've done it, the students have asked for a little bit more time because a lot of times we're trying to cram in a lot of information and they want more time for questions. So the first year we did it, it was 8-week session. The second year was a 9-week session. Now it's a 10-week session. And I hope this is our magic number. I think it's going to work out well. And I'll be sending you soon a kind of like a layout of what the rest of the 10 weeks will look at, like what topics will be covered. And so we, are really looking forward to getting to know all of you and for you to get to know us and our office and to learn more about the justice system. And I'll say every year it's been great working with the people who attend, the people who attend these sessions, because we learn as well. There's always great questions that are being asked, suggestions that are being made, and I'm all ears. I love to hear your thoughts and any suggestions that you have. Always feel free to shoot me an email or send me a chat. These things, we are here to serve the community, make sure our community is safer, and you have a great pulse in the community because you're there. So without further ado, we're going to get started. And this year, based on the comments from the students of last year, they wanted to get to know each other a little bit better. So we decided that we are going to do like introductions and do a little question, a little get to know you type of question. So I'm going to ask that we just go around the quote unquote room and state our name, where you're employed, and what is something that we would not know about you just by looking at you. And I hoping that you guys just volunteer and just whoever wants to go, or I can call on you. Either way, whatever makes you feel comfortable. So I'll give it a few seconds.
I'm happy to go first.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that.
Sure. I'm Kellyanne Behrens, and first I'd like to say thanks for this opportunity. I'm very excited. My friend Jen Tao, who's a magistrate, sent me the information, so I'm looking forward to it. Thank you all for your time to make this possible.
We love Jen. I've had the privilege of working with her at the Muni Court, so she's awesome.
Yeah, she's great, isn't she?
Yes, she really is.
Yes. So I just ended 5 years with Leadership Akron as a program facilitator, and I left that position to kind of take some time and regroup and see what I want to do with this next chapter of my life. I would tell you one thing you can't tell about me from looking at me is I'm very funny, but my children would say they are funnier than me. And I would say, no, they are not. I love to bake and play tennis and and be a mom. And I love Akron. So there isn't really anything spectacular that I can tell you. I'm just really excited to be here. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. That's great. Feel free to make jokes in the middle of any of our classes. Who else wants to go?
Yeah, I'll go next.
Thanks, Marcus.
Yeah, once again, thanks again for the opportunity. My name is Marcus Mariner. I work for UPS. I've been fortunate to be there for 35 years. Something that you guys may not know, I mean, I'm a big college football fan, but on the opposite end, I kind of like candles. This is the time of year where I guess the sense of the fall and things like that. I like candles and stuff like that. So I always get teased on that part, but that's something I really enjoy, burning candles here. So
Thanks, Marcus. That's great. I would never have pegged you for a candle lover. Who else wants to go?
Oh, I'm Celeste Thayer. Oh, sorry.
No,
You want to go?
No, go ahead.
I'm Celeste Thayer. I work at Catholic Charities in Akron. We are our main campus is off of Baruta Street, which is off of East Avenue. Been there for 29 years. I didn't even know this kind of thing existed, but definitely want to be involved in the community. And something you don't know about me, I guess I'm a hunter. Sorry for any of you that are not, but
Celeste, you got a little frozen, but I heard you. You're a hunter. Look at it like I do a lot, with unconscious bias and what your expectations are when you meet somebody, and it's
Sorry,
funny because I wouldn't have pegged you. I wouldn't have pegged you as a hunter. So
sorry,
that's
my
great.
connection dropped for a minute, so I don't know. I must have missed something in there, but
The last
Yeah.
thing we heard was you're a hunter and you apologize for anyone who is not.
yeah, I'm sorry. We do it for the meat. I mean, mainly, and our family. So yeah.
Great. Thanks, Celeste.
Hi, I'm Darlene LaFontaine, and I'm a parent mentor in the Hudson City Schools, and I help families whose children have disabilities. So I just help them navigate the whole special education system. And part of that is being out in the community. I help them get developmental disabilities. We've had judges come. We've done transition expos where they come and talk about guardianship. So, I have a real interest in protecting those families and learning more about, that's the type of person that typically is taken advantage of. So I think to understand what's out there protecting them is helpful for me. And something you wouldn't know about me is that, let's see, maybe I'm the opposite of Marcus in that I grew up with 5 brothers. So I was motocross riding when I was 10 years old. And when I met my husband, we broke down in a motorboat, and I flipped off the top and I fixed it. And he claims that's why he married me, because I'm handy. And that's it.
Oh, that is awesome. I love this, you guys. We're getting off to a really great start. I will add, one of the programs that we offer at the Summit County Prosecutor's Office is the Take Me Home program. Darlene, are you familiar with it? Okay. And it's a program that helps individuals with disabilities, seniors, where if, especially people with dementia or who would maybe wander off from the house, the families, the caretakers would put those members into a database with the police officers. So that way, if that family member wanders off and the police find them, when you ask them, where's your home, they may not know, but the police will know because they're in the database and they can return them back to their caretakers. It's called Take Me Home. It's on our website. But Darlene, if you need any information on that, I think it sounds like you already know about it, but
I do. I have it on my website too.
Oh, that's great. And it's so great what you do for the families at the Hudson Schools. We appreciate
Thank
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Who's next?
I'll go.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Kim Oswald. I too work at Catholic Charities. Celeste is my partner in crime, no pun intended. I've been there 24 years. I do human resources and safety. And I joined because we work out in the community, and just would like to learn more about other programs that we may be able to collaborate with, or what types of needs are out there, because we always kind of want to stay on the cutting edge of what the community needs. Something about me, I am totally addicted to true crime, ID Channel, Oxygen, Dateline, all of that.
That's great. I love having Catholic Charities people here. I used to work at Catholic Charities, and you guys do great work too. So it's so wonderful to have you both here.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go.
Hi, Tanya.
Hi, my name is Tanya Gully. I work for First Energy in management. I've been there for about 17 years and I absolutely love my job. Something you would not know about me, and I'm just going to say this just because it seems people are so surprised when they find out this, but I have a 40-year-old daughter, and see, I see your mouth. So
Yeah, I would never have guessed that.
but I do, and a 17-year-old grandson. So
Wow.
I'm thankful for this program. I'm looking forward to getting all that I can get out of it.
Thanks for being here, Tanya.
I'll go next.
Hi, Kristen.
My name is Kristen Cooper, and I work for the Summit County Board of Developmental Disabilities. I'm a social worker for adults with disabilities. Before that, I was at Children's Services. Something you wouldn't know about me, I have a lot of tattoos. And also I went to high school with Tanya.
Yes. I'm so glad to see you, Kristen.
It's been a long time.
It's been way too long.
We were the first class of graduating girls, right?
We were. That's something you wouldn't know about us. We were the first Welsh Jesuit girls graduating class. And it was a bonding moment for all of us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this.
Kristen, thanks for being here. It's awesome to see you.
I guess I can get in here now.
Thanks, Russ.
Russ Schaefer. I've been working for the Department of Veterans Affairs for, let's see, I used to have hair when I started. So 41 years ago, I'm in my 41st year.
That's as old as Tanya's daughter.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good ride. So this is probably my last year or so to work. And I've been working out of the homeless program. We have a big homeless program here at the VA. We usually have about 78 veterans in the homeless program. And now with the COVID, we probably have about 20. So it's good. I used to be chief of Oak Rehab to help guys get jobs. And if you were involved with Catholic Charities, you were just on the street, because we're at 105th down here in Cleveland. And something you probably don't know about me is you went to Welsh Jesuit. Well, I had 4 kids go through Welsh Jesuit. So
when did they graduate? Kristen and I might know that.
About 4 years ago, my oldest daughter graduated as a teacher. She's out in Phoenix right now. My next son down is becoming a dentist. He's at the University of Pittsburgh. And then I have a senior at Ohio State. He's going to be one of those computer geeky guys, and he's a senior. And my daughter is in her 2nd year at Ohio State. She went into nursing, but then she changed her major, and I could have shook her hand, but she changed it to business instead of nursing. So we'll see where she lands.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot to be proud of there.
Yeah, it's a long ride, and some other things you don't really know about me, but maybe I shouldn't put this up yet.
Oh, Russ.
I know you're all prosecutors.
What is wrong with you?
Oh my goodness.
Can we kick people out?
There first. This is my emblem.
It's like funny he has it with him. Like, do you carry it around?
So if I go to a job fair or something, I'll put it on my Steelers hat so I don't get lost. If they need to find me, they just point it out and tell them to go find the guy with the hat on.
If anybody has their Browns blanket or Browns hat, they need to, counter that. Right?
I have to admit, you're doing pretty good this year.
We are
But we
for
need,
now.
but we need
I won't
each
hold
other.
my breath.
Yeah, well, I'll check where everyone's putting their money in their bank account.
I got some fantasy football players from the Browns that are giving me some points so far. So see.
And, I usually can point people here at the VA. If anybody has questions, they can contact me and I can point them if I don't know the answer. So thanks a lot for this opportunity for the education.
Thanks for being here.
Mhm.
All right, who hasn't gone?
I
Hey,
can
I can
go.
go next.
Oh.
Okay, Allie, go ahead.
My name's Allie. I'm an Asaki advocate for the Rape Crisis Center. Is that all I was supposed to answer?
There was it was also say something that about you that we wouldn't know just by looking at you.
I went to Kent State University for Human Development and Family Studies.
All right. Thank you, Allie.
You're welcome.
Tasha, were you gonna go next?
Yeah, I can. And I'll turn my camera on for this, which I don't want to because I always think I look bad. But
We
I
won't
have something
judge.
for you,
We
Russ.
won't judge.
I have this for you.
There you go, girl. There you
I
go.
just ran to my son's room to get that.
Hey.
I just ran to my son's room to get that. I'm actually like in my bedroom, which is why I don't have my camera on.
You look
But
great.
I am, thank you. I'm Tasha Peacock. I am a leader in the emergency department at University Hospitals in the trauma unit as a registrar, which is the reason I have my camera on. I work third shift and I feel like I look like yesterday treated me. So it was a really rough day. People die in Cleveland often, apparently. So yeah, I do that. I am also Ward 2 candidate for city council in the city of Greene.
Awesome.
Is in, a few short weeks. I'm a full-time student at Cleveland State University. I'm studying urban planning. I'm also a mom of two. I have a freshman at Georgia State University. And a 6th grader, 11-year-old, I'm sorry. Sometimes he acts like a 6-year-old. So I'm awfully busy, but I try to stay that way. I think that I wanted to be part of this simply because I am involved in the city's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And I have learned that just being involved in our city and being involved in the community. And I'm from Warrensville Heights, which is right outside of Cleveland, but I've lived in Akron for a few years now, and I moved to Greene. And it's just that Summit County, for me, has so much to offer. I think it's a great county, and sometimes it's not really, noted as great as it should be. So we're not just the home of LeBron James, and I think that it's great to kind of know what's going on and try and help people with as much knowledge as I can provide. I don't know, something you wouldn't know about me. Oh, I'm a licensed minister. Yeah, and I'm one of 9. So yeah, that's it.
Well, you sound very busy, and we really appreciate that you're here, and all you're doing for the community. I know it's not easy to put yourself out there and run for office. So that's awesome that you're doing that, and everything else you're doing. First responder, the kids, all of that. Thank you.
It's insane, but I think that it's worth it. And but I'm working on. I'm close to 40. So Miss Tanya could be my mom.
Yeah.
But I'm working on kind of being done with everything by 40 so I can kind of live what I think is a normal life. So yeah, we'll see.
That's awesome. Who's next?
I can go next.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Hallie.
Everyone, my name is Haley. I am an Asaki advocate at the Rape Crisis Center of Summit and Medina counties. One thing you might not know about me, I guess, I really like hiking. I like plants. I like reptiles. And Russell, my family, is also Steelers fans. We're from East Liverpool, so yeah, you're not alone there.
That's two of us at least.
Next thing you know, she'll be pulling out the towel or the mug or something.
We'll get more on our side as we go. There's 10
Maybe we
seconds.
could turn off the video.
Just remember, I have full muting power, so I can just start muting anybody anytime.
Kathy, I think you were next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy, and I am technically retired from Children's Hospital as an outpatient therapist for many years. I still have a part-time private practice, and I work with the Interfaith Council as a volunteer and the Akron Interfaith Immigration Advocates. And something you wouldn't know about me is I still do jazzercise. Done it a lot of years.
I wouldn't say you're retired. Kathy does a lot of work with immigrants, so she's helped a lot with a lot of my cases I've had. So I think you're a full-time worker, and I think she froze.
I think so. Yeah, and Catholic Charities, back in the Catholic Charities days, and still.
Yep. All right, who's next? Who hasn't gone yet?
I'll go.
I'm Anita Kayat. I actually live in Norton. I have retired from a career in healthcare and clinical research, and I now spend my time as a mentor with SCORE, which is a nonprofit organization, a partner of the Small Business Administration.
I'm a part of that.
Okay. We help people either start businesses or grow businesses. And we actually this semester are doing a couple of programs at local prisons for women who are incarcerated but thinking about starting a business. So we're trying to do something to help people who are in the criminal justice system and going to re-enter into the normal stream of society. So we're happy about that. I guess one thing you wouldn't know by looking at me is I survived raising 4 sons, and happy about that. They're all gone and self-sufficient, which is always good.
That's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a Hayat that was a doctor in the family?
Yes. Actually, he and I were at the Cleveland Clinic at the same time, and we used to get each other's mail. But he's a surgeon, and I was a researcher.
Yeah, I think you know my uncles, Waleed and Rashid Niemer. They had the name was familiar. So when I saw your name in the application, I'm like, I wonder if she's related.
Yeah.
All right, who's next?
I'll go.
Okay.
I'm Kara Sia, and I'm the founder of Art Sparks. We're a nonprofit that brings dance and music into the public schools. And our Hallmark program is a program that pairs students with developmental disabilities with same-aged peers for the purpose of having those peers understand diversity and embracing the fact that difference can be a springboard for all kinds of creativity and wonderfulness. So that's what I do. And something you might not know about me is that, let's see, I love to go to a new city and vintage shop. I love to go to mom and pop vintage stores.
That's great. It's great to have you, Kara. Thank you. Who's next? Who hasn't gone yet?
Hi. Oh, does Risa want to go? She can go.
You can
go. Where I don't see Risa. Oh, I see Risa. Okay, yeah. Whoever wants to go.
Okay. My name is Brenda Justice.
Great name. Great name.
Thank you. And I work for the Akron Symphony as a coordinator of choral programs. I've been there 23 years. I also have a domestic violence awareness group called Power of Dreams Sister Help Me Sisters Ministries for the last 13 years. And Anita's score is great. I've been with Bill Glazier for all this time. So it's been a wonderful thing and wonderful guidance. Let me see. The reason I didn't even know this program existed, but for Power of a Dream, I wanted to look more into the legalities of things as far as domestic violence. And we have some things that are on the rise because of the pandemic. So I've been working or getting introduced to some things with the municipal courts, and I wanted to see what's going on with the prosecutor's office as well, and just to see. Then I happened to run across this, and so I thought it might be very enlightening for me, and to you never can stop learning, and so that was a good thing for me. I am a mother of 2 sons and 4 grandchildren, 2, 4, 6, 10, from 1 son, and one of the things you probably wouldn't know by looking at me is that this is one of those years of finding myself as well. So, but I was an opera singer, and then I left the field, and I just came back. I would say somewhat into that field again. So that's what I do.
That's amazing. That's awesome. We're really glad to have you, Brenda. And we are going to have a session that really focuses in on domestic violence. I mean, the work you do is great. We appreciate you being there for our victims.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
My name is Rasay Matthews.
Sorry, I was saying your name wrong, Rasay.
You are the first one today to get that one wrong. So, yeah, just today.
Okay. Sorry. I'm always, that person.
Breaking new ground, girl.
That's right.
I am a proud mother of 3, 2 of which are stepchildren and 1 which naturally born. And I am still, because of him, I am still a board member, actually board president at the Steel Academy, which is a charter school that works with students with developmental delays. Apparently compared to, I just lost her name, Tasha, I'm a vast underachiever. And you wouldn't know it to look at me, but I am a tea aficionado.
I love tea.
We could be friends. I love the tea thing.
Oh my God.
love that.
Has anyone been in downtown Akron? There's the tea lady down there. I wanted to go.
No.
Yes.
No.
We should somehow find a way to
exactly
meet on there. Okay, who else is?
I have to go. I was waiting. My daughter was having a piano lesson like 10 feet away, so I had to wait.
We can hear the nice music.
I know. Hello, my name is Nikki Romo. I'm a theater artist here in Akron. I'm also the artistic director of Dunamis Theater here in Akron. We're a small little company that's growing. I'm also getting my master's in sociology, so I want to combine sociology and theater, what I do, and kind of reach out to the community as I've been with classes and education and performances. So that's kind of why I'm here, is to learn more about the community in Akron aside from what I know of it. So, and then kind of marry it to and have performances you guys can all come to and hang out at and conversate and learn from. So that's the goal. Gosh, I was going to say I was a huge Browns fan, because I am. We all watch it. I make my kids watch it. I have 3 children, 20, 17, and 13. And let's see, what else? Oh, something I guess you wouldn't know about me is I have a little brother who's 17 years younger than I am, and it's just him and I. So, yeah. We're like essentially both only children, but I have a sibling. So it's strange.
My dad had, his older brother was 20 years older than him, and he was his dad, his brother, his best friend. It was like everything all rolled into one. So, you know, that many years difference is really a cool relationship.
Mhm.
All right. Anybody else? Who do we have? Rhonda?
I'll go. Yeah. I am a retired school teacher. I've grown up in the Springfield Township area all my life. And I worked several years for the Head Start program, and then I started teaching in public schools. I served a few years on the police auxiliary here in township for Springfield Township Police Department for several years. My brother retired as a police chief, so I've always been interested in criminal law. And like someone else said, I'm addicted to the ID shows and the criminal shows and all that stuff. Something people don't know about me is that I am a twin and I have twin brothers.
Wow. That's awesome. Thanks, Rhonda. Is there anybody else?
I'll go next. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, great. Hi, my name is Vernay Ross Bell. I serve at Emmanuel Christian Academy as administrative assistant to the Early Childhood Center. And also serve on the leadership team with my church, Disciples of Christ Ministries in Akron, Ohio. And one thing you would not know about me, my name, the Ross and the Bell. I use them both intentionally to honor my mother and father.
Oh, that's really sweet. I like that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vernay.
You're welcome.
Anybody else who didn't go?
I'll go.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, my name's Tracy Sober, and yes, that's as in not drunk. So until I get married, again, I'm sober. And I retired from Midway Express in the IT department, and I've been to several police academies, so I've seen what happens when somebody makes a bad decision, and I'm interested in what's available, how to get people rerouted to sort of learn beyond that point of what happens and how things happen. I guess what you don't know about me by looking at me is that I've ridden in the Goodyear Blimp.
I'm sorry?
I've ridden in the Goodyear Blimp.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Tracy. Is there anybody else who hasn't gone?
I can go.
All right, Elizabeth.
I go by Libby, but I work at the Rape Crisis Center with Allie and Haley, but I'm a direct service advocate. And something you wouldn't know about me is I really like corgis.
Corgis?
Yeah, the little dogs. with
My
the stubby
son.
legs.
Oh.
Yeah, I have one. His name's Archie.
That's so cute. Thank you. Thanks, Libby. Anybody else? Did we get through everybody?
No, I'll go.
I thought so, Kelly. I didn't want to call you out.
Oh, I was waiting. I tried to get in, and people were kind of doing everything.
No, I appreciate it.
Oh, no
Take it
problem.
away.
My name is Kelly Edwards, and I just started a new career. I am now a paralegal with Kissling, Nestico, and Reddick.
Great.
Prior to that, I did insurance. I did that for a long time. I needed a career change. I have a degree in criminal justice from Kent State University. Thus, how that's bringing me here. When I saw it, I said I have to be a part of this. Something you probably wouldn't know about me, that I used to be a juvenile corrections officer. So just trying to see, the front end. I know how they got there and what's going to happen once they're there and once they get out, just to see what happens, how do you get to that point? So I thought this was an excellent program, and I just had to be a part of it.
Well, it's great to see you and have you here. Thank you. Is Kelly our last? Do we have any more? Any more takers? I put little notes next to your applications on your fun fact. So I should have put it in an Excel spreadsheet so I could see who's missing. But What an awesome group of people. I mean, I've gone through all your applications, but seeing you all on the screen and hearing you all speak and learning about you, I feel like you're a very powerful group. It's awesome, like all the great things you do. So it's so great to have you. James, I don't know if you can hear me. I think we should take a couple minutes. James, if you want to introduce yourself and your job title and your fun fact.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is James Pollock. I am the Director of Communications for the Summit County Prosecutor's Office. I have been with the office for 6.5 years now. Unfortunately, you can't see me, so I apologize, but my camera's not working. So I'll just show you a picture of my dog. That's my dog, Chewy. I just happen to have it on my computer, so I figured I would share that. Gosh, I was thinking as everybody was saying their fun facts, I was like, boy, I don't have anything like that. I have traveled to, I started counting, I've been to 25 states. I've lived in 3. I grew up in New York City, lived in Phoenix Arizona for about 10 years, and now I've lived here for about just over 20. But yeah, I used to work at a radio station, did a lot of traveling. So I've been to a lot of sporting events. I was able to cover a Super Bowl. I was in Super Bowl 30 in Phoenix. So that was fun. But that's my fun fact.
All right. And you guys know my name. I'm Tanya Niemer, and I'm the Community Outreach Prosecutor. And I'm going to make it quick because we have both our speakers here. My fact you would know about me is I speak 3 languages, English, Arabic, and Spanish, fluently. So it's great to have our tutor. Oh, I'd be happy to do it. I need to, being at the prosecutor's office, I get to use the languages sometimes, but not as much as I used to the more I was in court. So it'd be great to work with you, Tasha. The overachiever, right?
I've learned that is me. I'm like, oh my gosh, when I start like writing things down, I'm like, oh wait, I think I do a little bit too much. So which is why it's my goal to stop by 40.
Hey, yeah, well, you know what? Never stop learning too. It seems like you're really active. So I love that. All right. So we have our great speakers today. I'm sorry, ladies, I kind of cut in a little bit of your time because I love their presentation. I want to make sure there's a lot of time for them. Our first speaker is going to be Crystal Baker, who is the director of our Victim Services Department in the prosecutor's office, our Victim Services Division. And she and Mickey Valdez from our Start by Believing program will be presenting today, and they have a great presentation. And ladies, do you want me to have them put their questions in the chat, wait to the end, or have them just speak up in the middle of just the presentation? What do you feel comfortable with?
I am fine with them speaking up, but really anyway is fine.
Okay, I'll be monitoring the chat to the class. However you're comfortable. If you feel like unmuting, just unmute and ask the question. If you feel like putting it in the chat, I'll be watching the chat and make sure I get those questions out to them. So without further ado, we have Crystal and Mickey.
All right, so while Mickey is bringing up the PowerPoint, I'm Crystal Baker, as Tanya said. I have been with the Summit County Prosecutor's Office for 7 years as the director of the Victim Services Division. Prior to that, I was the director of services at the Battered Women's Shelter for about 11 years. A little background on me. I have a master's in justice studies, and my fun fact.
I was going to ask you.
may not be something that everybody is familiar with, but the show Mork and Mindy that Robin Williams was in. When I was a kid, I lived several places, and one of those was in Boulder, Colorado. And I was actually friends with a girl who lived in the house that they filmed as the outside of the house for the opening up of the show. So my understanding is they didn't film inside of it. They just filmed on the outside as if that was the house that they lived in. So she was a friend of mine that lived about 2 blocks down. So that's my little fun fact. So I'm going to kind of dive in here and talk about the Victim Services Division. And Mickey, you can go to the first slide.
All right. Let's see, maybe.
So it's really hard to think about a time when there were not victim advocates that were available to victims of crime. It's hard to think about a time where there were not constitutional rights for victims of crime. But there was a time when victim advocacy was not the norm. Upholding victims' rights was not the norm. And kind of thinking about it in this way, when prosecutor Sherry Bevan Walsh was elected to office in 2000, there was not a victim services division in the Summit County Prosecutor's Office. And sometimes it seems like 20 years ago was a long time. But when you think about it in that context, that we did not have a victim services division prior to 2000, that's kind of a scary thought. So when Prosecutor Walsh was elected into office, one of her main priorities was to, is anyone hearing that feedback?
Yeah, we just, somebody's got a mic open, so.
Okay. I didn't know if it was me or what.
Nope.
Okay, sorry about that. So one of Prosecutor Walsh's main priorities was to create a unit that was dedicated to victims of crime. And so that is one of the first things that she did when she came into office. And that our division has grown quite a bit since then. So just to give you a little bit of an idea, prior to, there were, from my understanding, 1 to maybe 2 victim advocates prior to 2000. And most of what they were doing was written notifications to victims. So with that little staff, there was no way they could be providing court advocacy and victim advocacy to all victims of crimes. So with that unit being created, what happened also was that there were advocates that were assigned to every courtroom and to every case. And that had not been the way it was prior to that. So the program was designed to have a dedicated set of victim advocates who are providing support and advocacy as someone goes through the process. In our office, this includes victims of juvenile crime and victims of felony crimes. So anything from theft to murder are the cases that our advocates are assigned to and working on. Okay, you can flip, Mickey.
Sorry.
So just to give you a little bit of an idea of the number of victims that we have served, in 2020, we served 3,375 victims. That is not to be mistaken with number of cases. This is number of victims. So we could have a murder case where we're working with 10 to 20 different family members. Those are all victims that we're working with. We also call them co-survivors of homicide. And so we could have one murder case, but we could be working with anywhere from 10 to 20 victims that are family members of the deceased victim in that case. The victims we work with they can be children or adults. It can be children who were perpetrated by juveniles. It can be children who were perpetrated by adults. It can be adults who were perpetrated by minors, juveniles. So there's a mix of that. We have a total of 8 victim advocates. 2 of those are dedicated to the juvenile delinquency division, and the other 6 are dedicated to our criminal division. And you see here some of the things that the advocates do. So informing victims of their rights is one of the most important things that we do, along with the court advocacy piece. Advocating on victims' behalf, safety planning, and we make a lot of referrals to other organizations within the community. There are other victim service providers that we make referrals to and we work collaboratively with. I know some people are on here from Rape Crisis. We work collaboratively with Rape Crisis, Battered Women's Shelter, Victim Assistance Program. And another thing that we do that not every prosecutor's office does is we are still involved after the conviction. So just because somebody is convicted and is sentenced does not mean that it's over for the victims. Victims, we also call them survivors, still have situations where they are still having to go through the process of fighting to keep someone in prison. Or maybe they're dealing with violations of probation because somebody's been sentenced to probation and that person is violating the terms of that probation, which could include contact with the victim. So after the conviction, we are still involved. We are still providing advocacy. One of the things that I do in my role is I work with victims throughout the parole process. And this mostly pertains to rape and murder cases. So going through that process with victims, sometimes victims are going through the parole process every couple of years. And that's what I mean by after the conviction, it's still not over for some victims. There's the appeal process. There's when inmates are asking to be released early, and there's the parole process. And so our victim advocates, as well as myself, are still involved after the conviction, and providing support and advocacy through whatever it is that's going on after the conviction. Another thing that I'm still on that slide, but that's okay. One of the newest positions that we created was about 3 years ago, where we created a position where we have a victim advocate in grand jury. The grand jury process can be very confusing to people. We were finding that between the time someone is arrested and between the time the case goes to grand jury could be a significant period of time where victims are kind of feeling in the dark and they're not sure what's going on and they don't really understand the grand jury process. So we have a victim advocate who is our grand jury victim advocate, and she's making contact with victims in all cases, both before grand jury and after grand jury, and is connecting those people to services and referrals. And then in those cases where grand jury either no bills that case, which means there's not going to be charges going forward and the case isn't going to go forward, or if they remand the case back to the municipal court, that is something that is also confusing for victims. And so our victim advocate will explain that to them and then connect them in cases where it's remanded to the municipal courts. She will then connect those victims with the advocates from the other organizations that cover the municipal courts, which is mainly Victim Assistance Program. And while I'm mentioning that, I always like to take the chance to make sure that people understand that Victim Assistance Program is a separate organization from us. Victim Assistance Program is their name. They are a nonprofit organization, and they provide services to victims regardless of whether or not that person has reported the crime. They provide services regardless of whether it's going through the court process, and they respond to the crime scene. So they are a different organization, but a lot of times people do get us confused with one another. And so whenever I have the chance, I like to try to clarify that for people. We also work with Victim Assistance Program collaboratively as well, and we'll often have cases where we have mutual victim survivors that we're working with. So what is court advocacy? I'm not going to read that word for word, but court advocacy is having someone to be with you as you go through the justice system, having someone to explain to you what is happening to the extent possible, letting them know what to expect, being a support system as they go through that process. And so they're not alone, basically, from the beginning grand jury through the end of the case and then after the conviction. So that is what court advocacy is. So this is the Ohio Revised Code definition of a victim advocate: a person from a crime victim service organization who provides support and assistance for a victim of crime during court proceedings and recovery efforts related to the crime. Does anyone have any questions so far? So one of the things.
Yeah, real quick. Is that particular program that you're actually doing, are the victims automatically assigned to you, or they have to be referred? I may have missed that.
Well, we are working with them because someone is being prosecuted. So we are going through the process with them because someone has been arrested and they're being prosecuted. So they don't have to be referred to us. They're automatically entered into our programming, and we automatically provide services to them, and we reach out to them. So they don't have to reach out to us. We're reaching out to them with the purpose of going through the process with them because somebody is being prosecuted by our office. That's a really good question. So Marsy's Law. I like to mention Marsy's Law because it's a newer law that was passed in February of 2018, or went into effect in February of 2018. And prior to Marsy's Law, we did have victims' rights in the Ohio Revised Code. So victims' rights did exist. They were there. They were in the Ohio Revised Code. There were obligations that prosecutors' offices had to make notifications prior to Marsy's Law. But what Marsy's Law did was raise those rights to the constitutional level in Ohio. And that is really important because what that means is that they have extra protections under Marsy's Law that they did not have prior to Marsy's Law being passed. And it also makes it so that organizations or entities can be held accountable if they are not upholding those rights. And so a big part of our responsibility in the prosecutor's office as victim advocates in the prosecutor's office is that we are the only advocates in the county that are bound by the law to make those notifications and updates to victims of crime. So we spend every day upholding Marcy's Law and making those notifications and updates to victims of crime. The advocates are extremely busy. Our office has thousands of cases that we're prosecuting. And so our advocates are aside from the court advocacy piece, are spending their time making sure that Marcy's Law is being upheld and that we're making all of the updates and notifications that we need to be making. We were doing that in our office before Marcy's Law came into effect. And, you know, we continue to do it. And now we can also, when we come across cases where maybe somebody's rights are being violated, then we can refer them to places like the Ohio Crime Victim Justice Center, which is an organization that covers the entire state of Ohio, that has free attorneys that are, their sole purpose is to help victims who believe their rights have been violated in some way. And when I talk about rights violations, I'm not only talking about what prosecutors' offices are required to do. There are over 600 different types of rights that victims have in different aspects of the system. So, for example, if they go for a rape kit, they shouldn't be charged by the hospital for having that rape kit done. That would be a violation of their rights. But if they don't know that, then that might be something that, you know, is still happening. So, you know, that's one example of the different types of rights I'm talking about. So there are different pieces to the criminal justice puzzle. And there are, you know, several different rights that go along with how that plays out and what sort of phase that person may be in. There are certain things that law enforcement is required to do as far as protecting victims' rights. For example, when they go out on a call and they meet with a domestic violence victim, they should be providing that domestic violence victim with information about emergency shelter and how they can get in contact with emergency shelter. So there's a lot of different rights that victims have. And sometimes there could be situations where someone needs to be referred to Ohio Crime Victim Justice Center to help them to have their rights upheld.
I just want to interject really quick so that everyone in the group knows that you're hearing from the expert in Marcy's Law, at least in our area. Crystal was very instrumental in and involved in the working group. Once Marcy's Law passed in the state of Ohio, she was part of that working group to help decide how the law was going to be implemented across the state. So I just wanted to make sure I pointed that out, that she knows her stuff when it comes to Marcy's Law. And we're grateful that she's in our office.
So
it looks like there's a question.
Yes,
Was there
I see the
Yeah.
question.
Okay.
And actually, I was going to go into that. Unfortunately, there are times where something tragic happens that leads to the passing of legislation. And in Marcy's Law, that is what happened. So in California in 1983, a woman named Marcely Nicholas, that her family called her Marcy, she was killed by an ex-boyfriend. And about a week later, her mother and her older brother were in a store, and they ended up in line with the person who killed Marcy, and had no idea that he had been released and was out on bail. At the time, there were no obligations for the courts or law enforcement or anyone to make notification to family members regarding that person, that offender being released. So they had no idea that he had been released or that they were going to run into him. So that is the story of Marcy. And it wasn't until later that her brother, Dr. Henry Nicholas, really started the movement for victims' rights and wanting to change the way things were done. So Marsy's Law actually began in California and was passed in November of 2008. And several other states have passed a similar law since then, but not every state has it. All right. We can go to the next one.
I'm on the next one.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
So these are just, I mentioned some of these organizations. These are some of the other services we have in our county. We are extremely fortunate in Summit County to have the number of victim service providers that we have. I already talked about victim assistance program. There's also a victim services within the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections. And there is an assigned advocate to our region. Her name is Kristen. And she is making notifications to victims regarding parole and release and things like that from within the Office of Victim Services. Rape Crisis Center responds to the hospital 24/7 and has a 24-hour hotline, as well as free trauma therapy. Battered Women's Shelter has emergency shelter for domestic violence victims, as well as free trauma therapy, support groups, all kinds of other services. And if you haven't heard of PATH, that's providing access to healing. That's within the Cleveland Clinic, Akron General Cleveland Clinic, where they have specialized sexual assault nurse examiners who are providing services to survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. So we have a lot of services in this county for victims of crime. Okay, you can go ahead. So trauma-informed care. Trauma-informed care is a way for service providers and people who don't work in this field to be able to approach someone who has gone through something traumatic. So trauma-informed care is kind of the technical term for it. And it is something that victim service providers live by as far as our approach to victims and survivors. And we're all trained in trauma-informed care. You really can't go to a conference or a training these days without hearing about trauma-informed care. And basically what it is that, you know, in our office, the prosecutor's office, what we need to remember when we're working with survivors, whether they're coming into our office or we're meeting them in a Zoom meeting, or we're meeting them in court, we need to remember that they are revisiting the trauma. We're going to work and we're doing our job, but they are revisiting the trauma of what happened to them. And so we need to keep that in mind in every interaction that we have with victims and survivors. We need to make sure that we understand the symptoms that come along with trauma and how trauma affects survivors, how it affects their memory, their brains. And when we're meeting with them, we need to make sure that we are approaching them with that trauma-informed care model. So I'm not going to read this word for word, but this explains the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration definition of what trauma is. And then Trauma can be a single event or a repeated event. So there can be one single event that happens to someone, and there could be a series of traumas that happen to someone, such as childhood sexual abuse, child abuse, domestic violence. So those are some examples of a single event versus a repeated event, and what trauma is. Go ahead, Mickey. Because I got the timer on me, I'm trying to go faster. The
Sorry,
three E's of trauma. This is kind of a quick way to remember. There's an event, so that's the violence, the harm, the natural disaster. The experience of the event is how that person assigns meaning to that event, and that can be different for different people. And the effect that it has on them based on the experience that they had. So it could be that they have an inability to cope with that, an inability to trust, all sorts of other physical, emotional symptoms that come along with that. It could be depression, and it could be that someone has flashbacks, nightmares. There's a plethora of different symptoms that come along with how that affects that individual person's experience of trauma. Go ahead, Mickey. So it's like I said, it's understanding the impact. And so when we meet with people, we need to be meeting with them with that understanding of the impact of trauma and all of the different experiences that come along with that, and all of the different ways that each individual copes with that experience. So instead of approaching someone with a "what's wrong with you," the approach is "what happened to you." So that's kind of a simple way of thinking about trauma-informed care, and how even if you don't work in this field, you may have someone, a family member or a friend, that comes to you and talks to you about some sort of trauma they experienced. And so just remembering that question, instead of asking what's wrong with you, ask what happened to you, and do no harm. Go ahead, Mickey. This is also a quick way to kind of think about trauma. The 4 R's: realize the widespread impact of trauma, recognize the signs and symptoms of trauma, respond by fully integrating that knowledge about the trauma, and then we always want to resist re-traumatization as much as we can. So minimizing that re-traumatization as much as we can. An example of that would be that there are child advocacy centers, and child advocacy centers are created so that they don't re-traumatize children, and they make it so that all the different players can be in one place, and hopefully that child only has to talk about that experience that one time with all of those different professionals in the room, instead of that child having to retell that experience over and over. That's a way of resisting re-traumatization and minimizing the trauma as much as possible. Go ahead.
Whenever Mum went away, he would come into my room. He said I made him do it, and that it meant he loved me. It always made me feel powerless, ashamed.
I never knew when an argument would turn into a fight. I was always scared, always on edge, always had to be ready to defend myself.
My late husband was very controlling, always put me down, told me what to wear or cook. He'd get angry if I didn't do things right. I had no choice or control. It made me feel useless. I had no confidence in the end.
So I zoned out, pretended it wasn't happening. It's so difficult to trust people now. I just freeze and float away in my head when I feel powerless.
Now I just get angry a lot, feel like I want to fight. Sometimes I worry I'm just like him.
I find it difficult to do things myself, and I get really nervous when I have to talk to new people. I avoid them when I can.
What we went through was traumatic because we were harmed, physically, emotionally, and felt like we were in real danger.
Traumatic experiences can be things that happen once, a serious accident or assault.
Or it can be where traumatic things keep happening, like physical or sexual childhood abuse, or domestic abuse, or relationships where you can't be yourself, where you're put down or bullied.
It can make you feel powerless, trapped or betrayed. The sense of confusion, shame or fear can be overwhelming, especially if there is no one you feel able to tell. Even after it's over, it's harder to get on with life and feel safe.
Trauma is more common than most people think. Almost 1 in 5 adults has experienced physical or sexual abuse in their childhood.
And more than a quarter of all women have experienced domestic abuse.
Some people recover after traumatic events. Some people aren't affected as much. Having good, safe, supportive relationships with other people can really help. But lots of people continue to be affected by trauma, sometimes long after it happened.
For most of us, traumatic or adverse childhood experiences like these affect our body's response to stress, affecting our physical health as well as our mental health. The impact of trauma can also make it harder for us to learn and to realise our full potential.
One of the most worrying things about the experience of trauma is that it can make us avoid people and places, even if they are there to help, like doctors, teachers, social workers, carers, colleges,
councils, community centres, employers, advisors. Because most trauma experiences happen in relationships with other people, we can find it difficult to trust people or feel safe. And sometimes the way we react to help ourselves feel safe pushes people away and makes it even harder to get the help we need.
It's like our brains learn survival tricks to get us through the trauma at the time, like priming us for danger,
making us run away,
shutting down when we feel upset.
It might look like we have a short fuse, like we're unfriendly, or we're just a bit absent.
Anything, however small, that reminds us of that trauma can set off our own unique trauma response to protect ourselves, making us avoid the people and places that we need the most, like you. But there are things you can do to help me trust you enough so I feel safe and I don't shut down or avoid you. You can offer me a different relationship that doesn't remind me of the one I had when I was a kid. One where I feel safe, I feel empowered, and I have choice and control over what happens to me. One where we work together and I can trust you. This is called being trauma-informed in the way you work.
Being trauma-informed means thinking about what will make me feel safe. It might mean offering me choice over the sex of the person offering me care or support, especially if it involves intimate care or examinations.
Unfortunately, your usual care worker Heather's off sick. We'll be sending someone else instead. Do you have any preferences about who comes instead?
Well, I'd feel more comfortable with someone I've met before. Most importantly, I'd like a woman.
Well, how about June? She's worked with us for 3 years. If there's anything you'd like her to do that Heather normally does, just ask.
Trauma-informed means empowering me to have control and take an active role in what happens to me.
We know some people don't like coming to the dentist, so is there anything that you're worried about or scared of? I can tell you each step I'm doing, so there are no surprises if you'd like. If you need me to stop, how will you tell me?
Trauma-informed means helping me to trust you by being clear about what will happen. Doing what you say you will do when you said you would do it.
Unfortunately, our advisors are running about 30 minutes late. I'm so sorry about that. Are you able to stay, or can we make another appointment for you?
Many of us at work will have had our own experiences of trauma in our own lives, or we might witness or hear about it in the course of our work. So the same principles apply to all of us. We all need to take care of ourselves by making sure we're safe and connected to the people and activities that matter to us. Can you think of anyone you've met or worked with recently that a trauma-informed approach would have made a difference to? Are there any trauma-informed changes you might make that could make a difference?
So if you offer me safety and choice, if you collaborate with me and empower me and help me trust you, then you will help me work with you. Even if I only meet you once, even briefly, you can give me a different kind of relationship. One where I feel valued and valuable, connected and safe.
And when that happens over and over again with everyone that I meet, I can learn that it's safe to make connections with people.
It is those connections that we all need to access life chances and reach our full potential.
You can skip to the next slide. Okay, so at the prosecutor's office, we do have some challenges with people wanting to come to our office and with wanting to meet with us. They know that they're going to be revisiting what happened to them, and they're going to be reminded of the crime. So there's a little bit different challenges sometimes that we have at the prosecutor's office with being able to get people to trust us. And so the trauma-informed piece is really an important part of what we do. And these are just some comments from survivors that we've worked with in cases that we've had. We give out surveys to victims, and so these are some of the comments that we've received back over the years. I compile those. They get returned to us. They're anonymous surveys. And so those are just some comments I wanted to share with you about the impact that the program has on victims and survivors. And one of the things that people often talk about is how important it was for them to be believed and to feel that they were believed. And so these comments represent some of that that importance for survivors to feel believed.
Which brings us to the Start by Believing campaign. I'm Mickey Valdez. I am the sexual violence specialist at the prosecutor's office. I've been here for 2 years now, and just a little bit of background for a couple of you who are in the performing arts. I feel like I am with my peeps because my previous career before becoming or working in victim advocacy, I was a teacher and basically I taught dance and theater at Firestone High School for 7 years, but have been involved in the performing arts as a dancer, dance teacher, and choreographer for musicals for decades. So this is my second career. So anyway, my role in the office is to do the outreach and education on Start by Believing, which was part as an extension of what Sherry has started with the Victim Services program. And it's an extension because it follows the same principles that she already had established in the office. So this campaign it's a public awareness campaign that was started by End Violence Against Women International back in 2011. We just celebrated the 10-year anniversary this year. But the whole goal was to improve the way our society responds to victims of sexual assault and victims of sexual violence and those crimes, those particular crimes. And it, believe it or not, was founded on the principles that these investigations into these crimes should follow the same course as every other crime. And what is most unbelievable is that it is not necessarily treated and handled in the same regard that a robbery would be or a domestic violence case. There are a lot of differences for a lot of reasons. But because of these principles that the Start by Believing campaign was founded on, we're actually trying to follow those requirements to achieve due process. So every person who is accused of a crime is afforded due process. That is their right. And we want to assure that these types of crimes are investigated in the same way so that perpetrators are held accountable. But then we also want to assure that people are not wrongfully convicted as well. So we want to make sure that all bias is eliminated in the process. So in 2019, Prosecutor Walsh learned about this campaign because Crystal was actually at a conference and heard about this, brought it back to the office, and it was a perfect fit to employ this in our office because it goes hand in hand with everything that she has already done. So we launched our campaign in 2019 in April, and so far going strong. But why is it important in our community to learn about Start by Believing? And there's several reasons, but one of the most important reasons that sexual assault is actually very common. A lot of people don't believe that sexual assault is a common occurrence, but for women, it's about 1 in 5, so about 20%. And for men, it's 1 in 3% that will experience some type of sexual violence in their lifetime. And that's pretty significant. But there are other populations that have vulnerabilities that make that risk go up even more. Those who are in the immigrant and refugee population, runaways, those who have addictions to drugs and alcohol, those who are homeless. And one significant area is the transgender population. The statistics show that 50%, 1 in 2 transgender people will experience sexual violence in their life, which is pretty remarkable. Another reason that this is important is because most times sexual assault victims are blamed and doubted. So when they come forward with that information and their experience, people in our community and the people that are in their life a lot of times don't realize that the first response that they have is, well, why did you go to the bar by yourself? Or why did you wear that? Why didn't you? And so these questions then create this negative response that will prevent them and deter them from coming forward and reporting that to law enforcement. And studies have shown that sexually violent crimes, sexual assault, is the most underreported crime in the United States. Only about 17% are actually reported to law enforcement, which is significantly lower than any other crime. And just want to make sure that you guys keep that number in mind, that percentage, that 17%, because it will be significant here shortly. Another reason why it's important is because these negative responses that victims are met with then lead to non-reporting to law enforcement, and that in turn could potentially bring about more victims. With all of the research that has been done and all of the statistics that have been gathered based on actual crimes and perpetrators across our country, rapists attack on average 6 times. So if the very first victim of that perpetrator feels that they don't have the support or the strength to come forward and report to law enforcement, that means that that perpetrator goes unpunished and not held accountable for the crime that they've committed, and feels empowered that they have done nothing wrong. And that's only one reason, but they can move on to then perpetrate that crime again. And the last reason that it's important is because it's costly not just for survivors, but it's costly for our entire society. The CDC actually did a study to try to assign what is the monetary value or loss for a victim of sexual assault. And so they, they took a look at everything, and the value that they came up with is based on the costs that were already incurred by older survivors of sexual assault. So over their lifetime, any expenses that may be associated with it. But they also rolled in the anticipated costs for any younger survivors with recent victimizations and the costs that they may incur over their lifetime. So they came up with this $122,000 per victim. And what we know is there are 25 million reported victims of rape in the United States. Now remember, only 17% report. So that number is actually higher, much higher. Which comes out to $3.1 trillion in lifetime costs. So the costs associated with that they're in 3 different categories. The first is in medical costs, and that's anything from having to go to the doctor because of any physical injuries, a break, a concussion, scratches, what have you. But it also includes mental health costs, going to therapy, group therapy, any medication that they might have to take. The next category is lost work productivity. And that includes not just the days that they miss because they have to meet with the prosecutor to go over their case or to go to court, but it also includes those days when the victims simply can't bring themselves to get out of bed and get into work, or the days that they do manage to get themselves to work, but they just aren't efficient anymore because they're either easily distracted or they're triggered by something, a noise, a sound, a smell, a person. And so then their work productivity is diminished, which means it's a cost not just for that person, but it's a cost for their employer. And again, that affects our society. But then the last category is the criminal justice costs and the amount that it costs our communities to try these cases, which in looking at all of that is the least amount. So it's significant to all of us. It should be important to all of us for this one particular reason. So where do we start? How do we go about changing this? First, we need to understand what rape or sexual assault really is. And in the state of Ohio, rape is any form of unwanted sexual contact obtained without consent. Okay, so that could be through intimidation, coercion, force, or threat of force. But it also includes when a person who is engaged in this sexual conduct with someone who is unable to give consent. So someone who has mental delays or disabilities, they're physically disabled, they are incapacitated or unconscious in any way, whether that be voluntary or involuntary, meaning maybe they went out drinking and they had too much to drink, or maybe they were asleep, or potentially even provided, like slipped a Mickey, let's say, or if they are under the age of 13 in the state of Ohio, the lowest age is 13. So in our society, what a lot of people feel real rape involves a stranger. It happens at night in a bad part of town, maybe jumps out of the bushes with a knife or a gun, and it's violent and they attack this person. And of course, the victim is fighting off the offender, and they're hysterical and they're crying. And as soon as it's over and they're released, they run to the police and they are telling them exactly what happened. But if you ask any police officer who works today whether or not this is what a rape looks like when they're reported, about 1% look like this. Most times it looks nothing like what our society believes rape looks like. So in order to understand a little bit better, we need to take a look at what implicit bias is. And the reason that our society believes that rape looks one way and what it actually is another way is based on this implicit bias. And basically what implicit bias is, it's an unconscious process. It's a way for our brain to kind of categorize things, assigning either a negative or a positive label on something, for lack of a better word. And that's how we create these stereotypes and how we have built this rape culture that our society lives off of. But it starts at a very young age, and it develops from the things that we hear growing up in our home, the way people are treated around us. We hear it from our family, our friends, our schoolmates, our teachers, our coaches, our employers, the things that we see on TV, the music that we listen to, it's in the movies. All of this contributes to this rape culture and these implicit biases towards things. So we're going to do a really quick example, a hypothetical case to see how implicit bias works on us. So I want you to be honest, and I want you to keep an open mind. So I'm going to give you a general case. This is totally made up. This is not a case that's actually in our office or was in our office. It's just a made up story. But these are the case facts. So a woman is sexually assaulted by a male supervisor at a convenience store where she works. Her supervisor then asks her to stay late to help stock the shelves. But she says that she can't work late because public transportation isn't available at that time. So her supervisor says, well, I'll just give you a ride home. So she agrees to stay late and accepts his ride to take her home. And then later she reports that he raped her in the car after he drove her to an isolated area. Those are the facts, and they will not change. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at two different scenarios where we have a victim number one and a suspect number one. And then we'll look at a completely different scenario with victim number two and suspect number two to see how implicit bias actually works in our brain. So in the first scenario, our victim's a college student from a rural area. She lives far away from the university where it's much more affordable. She has to work as much as possible because she's paying for her own schooling, and she has to pay to live in her housing. But she's a good student and she's got no criminal history. So put that person in your mind and think about who she is. The suspect, on the other hand, has a criminal history. He includes drug possession and petty theft. His name's come up in a domestic violence situation, but he's never been charged. And he's been employed at the store for less than 1 year. So really quick, unmute yourself and throw out what you think. How do you picture this victim? Who is she? What do you think the jury might think about this victim? Anybody?
They would think she was a good, trustworthy person. They would believe her.
Absolutely. Almost the perfect victim. What about the suspect? What do you think the jury might think about the suspect?
He did it.
He's guilty.
Absolutely.
I risked due to his record.
Right. Very good. So all of these things in who he is and his background would make it very easy for the jury to say, oh yeah, I could see this guy doing it. Right? Okay, so remember the case facts, they have not changed, and we're going to look at scenario number 2. The victim in this case is in her mid-40s and has had her kids taken away for neglect. She's got a criminal history, including check fraud, and she needs an income to make sure she can pay off her fines. She has to prove that she's working, not doing drugs, and not using alcohol in order to get custody of her kids back. The suspect, on the other hand, is the store manager, and he's been Employee of the Month several times. He's been working at the store for over 3 years. He's married, has 3 kids, and an active member of his church. Now, knowing that the case facts have not changed, the same as the first one, what do you think the jury is going to say about this victim? What are they going to think?
I'm not going to believe her.
Depends on the evidence. Like, did they do a rape kit?
Very well. They're going to say, well, I need to see the evidence. What are you going to show me that I'm going to believe her instead of automatically believing her, right? So what about this suspect in this scenario? What is the jury going to say? What do you think?
They'll probably initially think he didn't do it, until they see evidence otherwise.
Exactly. Why would he do it? He's married. He doesn't need to, right? Because we know people who are in a good position in our society, in our community, don't do things like this, right? Like a priest. And I can say that because I'm Catholic. But there's a lot of people who are upstanding citizens, supposedly in our society, that have later been convicted through evidence of crimes like this. So we cannot necessarily judge a book by its cover, right?
I learned that on ID.
What's that?
I learned that on the ID channel.
That's right. For those of you who are addicted to the ID channel, there's your little tidbit. So one of the things that we need to do to chip away at this rape culture and help us improve the way that we are responding to victims who come forward or who experience a sexual assault is we have to look at what are all these myths that are out there. We have to dispel all of them. So we're going to talk about 4 of them really quick. The first one is that rape is most commonly perpetrated by someone unknown or a stranger to the victim. Any takers on what you think the percentage is that it's perpetrated by a stranger?
I'm going to say 40% by a stranger.
40? 40?
I was going to say less than 5%.
I'll say about
right.
5 to 10%.
All right. Pretty good. Not too bad. The truth is that most victims know their perpetrator. 14%.
Wow.
14% are perpetrated by a stranger. Now, remember I told you to keep that percentage in mind about how many are reported to law enforcement?
17%.
17%. That's right. Why do you think those two go together or are similar? I don't think it's coincidence. It's because, at least one factor anyway, it's much easier to come forward and report to law enforcement that some person that you have no idea who they are did this to you than to come forward and say, my best friend did this to me. My college professor did this to me. The girl I dated 3 years ago did this to me. It's much harder to come forward and say, I know this person, even if they're just an acquaintance or a coworker, or you dated them or you were married to them. It's much harder to come forward and say that because people will question, people will doubt. If you knew this person, why didn't you do something? And it's the same, male versus female. It's exactly the same. The second myth is that real rape involves a great deal of physical violence and visible injury. And those who work in victim services and those of us in the office who see these cases come through and work them, that is rarely the case. There is typically very few cases that come through that have any visible injuries, bruises and scratches and broken bones and ripped out hair. It does happen, but not all that often. And one of the reasons why, because they know their attacker. They know the perpetrator. And so the perpetrator has an advantage. They can use intimidation and coercion, and they can dupe them and manipulate them. But the other thing that we have to consider is that the victim, when they know their perpetrator, two things happen. They either, one, are completely caught off guard because they would never expect that person to violate them in this way. So they are frozen because, you know, it's unbelievable, right? The other situation would be that they know this person so well that if they were to fight back, the consequences could be worse. They know that what this person is capable of, and in order to survive, they choose to just go along because it's easier, and they know that they can at least walk away. So those are just two, examples of why there wouldn't be any physical injuries. But we also have to take into consideration that many sexual assaults happen when alcohol is involved, drugs, recreational or otherwise, are involved. And maybe that person, they don't need to perpetrate any physical violence against the person because they're incapacitated or they're unable to fight back. Do we have any questions? Are we good? And keep going?
There's none. Yeah, there's none in the chat.
All right, good. The next myth is that a victim of real rape would report the crime immediately and react hysterically. So knowing just the little bit that we've talked about already, if you believe that going forward and telling law enforcement that this horrible thing just happened to you by this person that you know, do you think that you would be believed going in? Maybe, maybe not. Most times, people need to take a day, a couple days, a week, a month, or sometimes years before they're actually able to come forward and say, this happened to me. The most recent thing in the news is all of the USA gymnasts that are dealing with this abuse from Larry Nassar. And the one person that I always come back to is Simone Biles. She's in the spotlight. She has a fantastic life. And it took her, even after all of those women came forward, she didn't come forward right away. It wasn't until recently that she said, yes, I was part of that group too. So all of the stigmas that are attached to sexual violence and sexual assault, and all of the doubts that people have, and let me see the evidence first before I believe you, that all plays a role in why people don't come forward. Think about if you're a male. So all of my guys on the Zoom here, think about it. If a woman that you knew, or even a gentleman that you knew, perpetrated this crime against you, how difficult or how easy would it be for you to come forward to law enforcement and tell them that this happened to you? Some men may be able to do that, but a lot of men may not, for a lot of different reasons. And that's the thing. We don't know what people have in their background, in their upbringing, in their beliefs, and all of the things that may have happened to them in the past that affect why or why not they report. So this is a video that is coming straight from victims. They are explaining why they chose not to report. And I put the YouTube link down there if anybody wants to refer back to it later. Oh, why did it do that?
I was 22 when I was raped. I was 19. I was 20. I didn't report it for, 1,000 reasons, a million reasons. It was somebody I was involved with. It was a friend of a friend. My
drug dealer.
Met this photographer by myself.
I got very drunk. I met some guy in this bar.
He started trying to kiss me and I said no.
He takes my left leg and raises it on his shoulder.
He went to put his hand in my panties and I tried to kind of deflect his hand, and that's when he slapped my hand away.
I blacked out.
I was fighting like pretty hard at this point, just saying no, please don't, please don't.
I came to...
Internally, I was shaking. I was really trying to look as calm as possible.
I could tell that something that I hadn't wanted to happen happened.
He held me down and he forced himself inside me.
I was being pleasant and nice just so I could remain safe and get out of there.
And I kind of just ran out into the street with like my pants on inside out and my shoes off.
And he sat up and he looked at me, and that was, I guess, the scariest moment for me, because I could tell he was deciding whether he was actually going to stop or not. And that was the moment that I realized that I had thought I was in control of a situation that I was not in control of at all.
And I blame myself for putting myself in that situation.
I knew that I had no proof.
I could hear people's judgment saying, well, why did you do that? It was your fault.
I was still in like physical pain from this and sitting there going, oh, well, no one's going to believe me.
It was my word against his.
Everyone was just going to go, this girl just, slept with this guy and changed her mind.
I wasn't the perfect victim.
I figured who's going to believe some cokehead college girl.
I didn't try to fight him off, or I didn't slap him around, or, I didn't pick up the phone and call 911.
I didn't know that I was important enough to draw boundaries around what people could and couldn't do with my body. Who wants to come forward with the literal most violating thing that can happen to you, relive it, and then have people telling you that you're making it up?
And I thought I would just be better off trying to put this behind me.
I couldn't imagine pressing charges and then having to sit in a courtroom and look at his face over and over.
I thought, well, that's giving him what he wants. I'm spending more time on him, or spending more energy on this.
I imagine, and I think rightfully so, that it would have been more traumatizing for me in many ways had I reported it. It's up to a survivor to decide what they do with their story. It's up to them if they want to report it or not.
I don't want this to be a part of who I am.
I hated myself a lot at the time.
We are violated, we are harassed, we are touched, we're trapped, we're scared. And we just take a chip on the shoulder and we keep our lives going, and that's not fair to us.
And I think it would be wrong to tell them that they don't get to decide what happens next.
So just want to make sure everyone keeps in mind that there are always different reasons why people choose to respond the way that they do, or report or not report. And it's not up to us to judge whether or not that's appropriate. Only they know what's appropriate for them. So the last myth that we'll talk about is that the victim would not have been sexually assaulted if they hadn't made a particular choice, engaged in a particular activity, or acted in a particular way. And of course, we all know that there is no particular behavior, activity, choice, decision, what have you, where the natural or typical consequence is sexual assault. It's unrealistic and based on our society's idea of who's a good victim. So to lighten things up a little bit, I have another video really quick that is taking a look at what victim blaming, what our society does, and how cases, if you took a sexual assault case and you flipped it, meaning if you treated a robbery the same way that a sexual assault case is treated. So just really quick, I want to say that we are very fortunate in Summit County that the Akron Police Department specifically has gone through lots of training, and we have some very good officers, and this does not necessarily reflect our local law enforcement.
You guys want some water or tea? You seem pretty upbeat for somebody who just had their computer stolen.
I've just never been robbed before. I'm just trying to be polite.
Are you sure it wasn't an unfortunate yard sale?
Yeah, it was a brand new iMac with Retina display.
Ooh, sounds pretty sexy. We flaunting it?
No, it was right over there on the bureau.
Oh, right here in front of this window. Flashing your goods for all the world to see? Kind of sounds like you were asking for it.
I should be able to put my computer wherever I want.
I found in a report you're going to bring a lot of negative attention to this neighborhood and to yourself.
I don't care. It's not my fault that this happened. The perpetrator should be the one getting the negative attention.
Whoa. Are you yelling at us? Because that is exactly the kind of bad behavior that we can use against you in your report.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not yelling. Please investigate.
Sure. Let's take a look around. No signs of forced entry.
Nope.
Locks intact.
Yep.
No broken windows. Do you have any physical evidence that you were robbed?
Yes. I had a computer, and now I don't have a computer.
Oh, let's not get cute, okay? How do I know that you didn't want someone to take your computer?
Because I'm saying I didn't.
Had you been drinking?
I had a Bloody Mary at brunch, but I don't see why that matters.
Wow. Because if you were drinking, the courts are probably going to side with the robber.
That doesn't make any sense. Even if I was blackout drunk, I still have the right to a safe home.
I think we're done here.
Wait, what?
Well, we need physical evidence in order to prove that you were robbed, and so far, we don't have any.
Well, what about dusting for fingerprints?
We could test for fingerprints.
Great, yeah, let's do that.
But there is a backlog of 400,000 fingerprint kits that have yet to be processed, so it's going to be a while.
This is ridiculous.
And even if we did find the perp at this point, it would be a real he said thing.
What?
Yeah, so you ready to drop this thing?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Someone was in here without my consent, and they took something that I'll never get back. I feel violated. And by not doing something about it, you're letting him go free so he could do it to other people.
Look, we can tell you're upset. So we're going to file a report. Don't worry. If I was you, I'd maybe get an alarm system, some security cameras, keep your blinds closed, hide all your valuables.
Buy yourself a gun, take some self-defense classes, make sure you get a big dog, make sure the house is never alone.
This whole system is set up against the victims.
Hey, robbers will be robbers. I'd like that tea now.
No, there's no tea here.
Always one of my favorite videos to show.
Water would be great.
The exaggeration is spot on. So what can we do? The first thing that we can do just as a community is to recognize that most victims are going to talk to someone that they know and trust first. That's their family or their friends. And it's that first response that they get that will determine whether or not they move forward in their healing process and report to law enforcement and seek medical attention and go to counseling. And those who are met with those positive responses, it's been shown that they suffer fewer PTSD symptoms, and they feel like they're more in control of their healing journey. So
that's my phone do not disturb. It's somebody still texting.
The next thing we can do is to react positively and from a place of non-judgment. And again, you don't have to be trained in victim services and victim advocacy in order to do this. It's very simple. The victim came to you for a reason, because they see you as a trustworthy person. And everybody here in this group seems like someone who wants to do well in our community. And it's a very easy thing to just believe. Be supportive. Try not to judge their decisions, their choices, or even their reactions, because everyone responds differently, and we have no idea how we would respond given that same situation. You might be surprised at how you would actually respond. And be patient. One of the things that we have learned with trauma is that when a person is traumatized and they've been through a sexually violent event or recurrence even, the way that their memory is stored is very different than you would expect. So recounting the experience may not come in a chronological order. It may not come with all the specifics and details that you are looking for. And so their story, if you will, may not make sense to you. But if you're patient and you just listen to them and allowing them to share the experience the way that they need to, over time, if they feel that they're supported and met with a positive response, the pieces of that puzzle for them will start to come together. The next thing is to respond with positive words. The easiest thing that you can do are say things like, I believe you. I'm so sorry this happened to you. What can I do to help you? Would you like me to take you to the police department or to the hospital? What if I just stayed with you? Would that help? Little things, easy things. I don't know what to do to help you, but I have a phone number. I know of a group or an organization that specializes in this that might be able to help you. Can I go with you? Can I call with you? Would you like me to call for you? Anything like that that's positive for them will allow them to be able to move to the next step. And the last thing is to respect their choice. The hardest thing for us as a community is to understand that not everyone will choose to go to law enforcement, just like the ladies in the video. They chose not to come forward and not to report. And it may not be ever that they want to do that. And we can't change that for them. However, what we can do is create a more supportive environment that makes it easier for them to come forward. Even if they don't want to report to law enforcement, seeking medical attention could be what they need at that moment. And eventually giving them time may allow them to open up. And even if it's 10 years later, being able to come forward and say, this is what happened, could help them in their healing process. So really quick, couple of things of what not to say, but instead say these others. So the first is, I understand. We can't ever understand what someone has experienced. You're lucky that that's all that happened, right? How many times have we heard people say that? Or it could have been worse. Well, for them, that was the worst. It'll take time, but you'll get over it. I can imagine how you feel. Don't worry, it's going to be all right. Can't guarantee that. So instead, we could just say it a different way. I'm sorry that this happened to you, or your reaction or your response. It's understandable, and it's not, you're not alone. I know that there are other people that, feel this way. I can't imagine how you feel. And things may never be the same, but they can get better. It's not a promise and it's not a guarantee. So some of the accomplishments with the Victim Services Division, and because of the Start by Believing program and campaign that we have, is that the victims' rights have been expanded far beyond just sending written notifications out to victims. We include victims in our process in the criminal justice system. Before any negotiations are done with defense, we always consult the victims. Even when we go to trial, what would you like to see happen? They have their voices heard. They're allowed to be heard at sentencing for any cases that go to trial, or for even those that don't go to trial. We assist them in making sure we've assisted in the victims' rights toolkits being designed so that victims can use them more easily. Obviously, Marsy's Law, and then providing training like this with Start by Believing to not just the community at large, but to service providers like law enforcement, victim service providers, hospital workers, and other mental health professionals. This is just one of the things that we do in our office to provide to victims. We call them healing stones, and they have small messages of hope, and every victim gets one. Many of them hang on to them forever, or they hold them when they have to testify at court. It's just that little piece of strength and knowing that there are others behind them supporting them. And these are where you can find additional information, just some resources for you where we've gotten all of our information, and organizations that can provide you additional information above and beyond what Crystal and I have discussed today, if you wanted to learn more. But just want to say that I appreciate your attention and willingness to participate in this academy, because I feel that obviously the more we know, the better we can do. And as a community here in Summit County, I feel like we've already got a pretty strong base, and the more we can bring on our team, the better.
Thank you, Crystal and Mickey. We appreciate you guys taking the time to speak with us today. And
I'm sorry we
appreciate
went over.
No, and I was just about to say that I appreciate all of you for sticking around. I apologize that we ran over today. We do respect your time, and we'll make sure that we're better with that time with the next sessions. But this was some great info, and the biggest reason, you know, we wanted to spend the time on this is we are a victim-centered office, and this is the most important thing that we do right now, and that is everything we do, we focus on our victims and the prevention of victims. So thank you, Crystal and Mickey, for all that you do and leading the way on that. And thank you all again for your time. I'm going to let you go. We are looking forward to next week, and I will be sending you out an agenda of who will be speaking and what we will be discussing for next week. Have a great night and a great weekend, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
We'll see you. Thank you very much for everything.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Tanya.
Great to see you, Kristen. Bye.